On November 12, 1942, in the western desert of North Africa, a seized U.S. vehicle lay deserted beside a wrecked British supply convoy. Its operators had escaped once their spot turned hopeless. Typical Wehrmacht protocol called for demolishing it or abandoning it outright, yet the reconnaissance team's leader had different plans. "Summon our top technician," he ordered. "Let's see if this machine can serve us." What the Africa Corps engineers uncovered over the following half hour would upend their assumptions about German engineering dominance. The insight arrived not in a sudden flash, but through a gradual awareness that built as they probed deeper. A modest label on the dashboard said, "Willys MB." The Yanks dubbed it a Jeep. The initial surprise hit when they lifted the hood. Inside, the motor bay gleamed with pristine organization, crafted for quick fixes by folks with just fundamental repair skills. Color-coded cables, plainly marked parts, and reachable elements that needed no fancy equipment. In 20 years fixing Wehrmacht gear, the lead technician had never encountered such practical design for on-site work. All fasteners were uniform sizes, every piece matched those in similar models. Tailored for high-volume assembly and straightforward swaps, the Go Devil motor measured 134 cubic inches and generated 60 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. Nothing spectacular next to German specs, yet the underlying approach marked a breakthrough. This power plant wasn't meant for flawlessness. It prioritized ease, dependability, and above all, scalability. A novice fixer could handle it using everyday implements, no exotic tools or intricate rituals demanding expert factory hands. Evidently, the Americans crafted this ride assuming rural lads and plant hands would keep it running amid battle chaos. By late 1942, the gap in U.S. and German vehicle doctrines stood out sharply. The states churned out more than 640,000 Jeeps across the conflict. Germany scraped together barely 50,000 Kubelwagens. Even more alarming was the deeper implication of that gap. The Jeep captured peak American production ethos, uniform, streamlined, geared for bulk output via partly trained laborers with swappable components. As the techs kept examining, the commanders drew near. "So, is it operational?" The head technician glanced up, picking his reply with care. "This ride is extraordinary. It shows foresight for battlefield realities." One captain scowled. "German craftsmanship leads the globe." The technician held back from debate. Instead, he pointed to the four-wheel drive setup. "Check this transfer unit. Just one shift engages all four wheels. One shift. Our Kubelwagens demand a sequence of steps, and plenty lack four-wheel capability anyway." The Wehrmacht's main scout car, the Volkswagen Type 82 Kubelwagen, shone in several ways. Ferdinand Porsche shaped it with classic Teutonic precision. It tipped the scales lighter than the Jeep, sipped fuel more sparingly, and its air-cooled mill dodged the radiator risks from hostile shots. Still, it carried a fatal drawback: strictly rear-wheel propulsion. Across North Africa's drifting dunes, Italy's rugged peaks, and Russia's slop, that shortfall wreaked havoc. The Jeep, however, could drive every wheel on demand. Its mechanism proved so straightforward that any raw recruit could figure it out fast. The techs pressed on with their review. The ride's setup relied on basic leaf springs, rough beside the Kubelwagen's advanced torsion bars, but far simpler to mend out in the field. The wiring was straightforward yet sturdy. The tank setup tolerated nearly any fuel quality sans adjustments. The real kicker lay in the balance of mass. The Jeep clocked in at roughly 2,450 pounds against the Kubelwagen's 1,540, a 9 on 10-pound spread. Teutonic designers might decry that surplus as wasteful, curbing speed and guzzling more petrol. But the inspectors grasped the intent in the seeming excess. That added heft meant toughness. The chassis was beefed up to endure battering that would wreck slimmer frames. The Yanks chose to value endurance against rough handling over peak refinement. They engineered it to thrive on mistreatment, excess loads, and brutal scenarios no planner would endorse, and it endured regardless. This defied the bungled Yankee work Wehrmacht propaganda reels had hyped. Here was design rooted in hard facts, not abstract ideals. The squad hauled the Jeep to their outpost. In the ensuing 3 days, the crew ran grueling trials. They pushed it over yielding sands that bogged down Kubelwagens. They piled on loads past its limits. They hammered it with stresses that would hobble ordinary rigs. The Jeep took it all in stride. In rugged landscapes where rear-wheel drive vehicles demanded cautious handling and frequently got mired in the mud, the Jeep just barreled ahead effortlessly. Its low-range transmission enabled it to inch over barriers at a leisurely pace, a capability the Kübelwagen's setup with reduction hubs simply couldn't rival. News of it quickly circulated among the Afrika Korps. The U.S. had developed a machine that surpassed the Wehrmacht's counterpart in virtually all key areas. Personnel from various outfits, officers and technicians alike, started showing up to inspect it closely. Their responses unfolded in a familiar sequence. First doubt, then reluctant admiration, followed by a sinking realization of what it all signified. A logistics officer with prior experience in pre-war German auto factories devoted several hours to scrutinizing the contraption. His verdict was straightforward and unflinching. This embodies a core shift in philosophy. Our designs pursue flawless engineering. The Americans prioritize ease of mass production. During all-out conflict, that edge counts for far more. He outlined the ramifications to the gathered leaders and sergeants. Consider this engine housing. It's molded rather than precision machined. The U.S. trades a bit of efficiency for enormous boosts in assembly rates. They can instruct a basic laborer to put together one of these power plants in mere hours versus days for a comparable German unit. Now, extend that logic to every part. He gestured toward the pressed steel chassis components. These sheets look rough next to ours, yet they pour out by the thousands from plants that once churned out kitchen gadgets. The Americans have repurposed their whole industrial base. Factories for fridges, laundry machines, and civilian trucks all shifted to wartime output. We stand no chance against such volume. The group grew quiet. He had voiced the unease that was starting to gnaw at many. Germany's emphasis on superior craftsmanship suited peacetime well. Yet, in unrestricted warfare, the Yankee strategy of serviceable gear churned out fast was delivering crushing results. That night, one technician drafted an in-depth analysis of the Jeep's features, highlighting advantages alongside flaws. The document climbed the ranks, joining countless similar evaluations from German intel teams. Identical dispatches poured into Wehrmacht Central Command from battlefields everywhere. Teutonic experts were bumping into U.S. gear and machinery more often, and their conclusions were consistently alarming. The Allies were churning out material at multiples that defied belief. Toward the end of 1942, Wehrmacht analysts launched an inquiry into enemy output. The findings validated their gravest concerns. U.S. plants were cranking out war machines by the thousands daily. Just the Ford Willow Run facility was finishing a B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes during its height. American yards were sliding Liberty ships into the water quicker than U-boats could take them down. The figures laid bare a harsh reality. U.S. 1942 output of military transports outstripped the combined efforts of Germany, Italy, and Japan. And it was accelerating further. The seized Jeep turned into a sort of star within its group. Troops vied to take the wheel. Commanders deployed it for scouting ahead, relying on its dependability over their standard rides. As bits gave out, substitutes came from other nabbed Jeeps with surprising simplicity. All the pieces fit seamlessly. Come early 1943, the Afrika Korps had snagged scores of them. Wehrmacht repair crews built ad hoc alliances, exchanging tips on upkeep and hoarded spares. A shadow economy sprang up for looted Allied hardware. A functional Jeep fetched sums way beyond its book price, given its clear dominance in sandy combat. Then arrived May 13, 1943, as the Afrika Korps laid down arms in Tunisia. Roughly 250,000 Axis troops, German and Italian, entered captivity. Their fighting days ended, but lessons in Yankee industrial might were only starting. The gap in abilities between the two sides grew starkly evident en route to internment. U.S. lorries hauled captives in masses that would have needed horse carts in the Wehrmacht. American Liberty ships often assembled in 5 to 6 weeks at 1943's frenzy versus 8 months at the outset, ferried multitudes over the ocean. Each element of the supply chain showcased coordination on a scale Germany never touched. At the detention site near Oran, Algeria, Taken technicians observed U.S. vehicle yard leaders maintaining squadrons of rigs with effortless precision unattainable in their own forces. The yard housed scores of jeeps, haulers, and staff vehicles. Fresh-faced GIs, numerous young technicians, fresh from adolescence, carried out repairs swiftly and assuredly. Supplies of tools were plentiful and easy to access. Components arrived without the usual paperwork holdups. All the vehicles shared fundamental parts, enabling any technician to handle servicing on any machine without needing expert skills. An American sergeant, fluent enough in German, spotted a detained technician observing nearby. "Are you a mechanic?" he asked. "I served in Africa Corps vehicle upkeep," came the reply. The sergeant smiled. "No fighting for you anymore, but I'll wager you've got inquiries. Follow me, I'll give you the tour. It's not like you can take off with anything these days." What ensued was an enlightening session that afternoon. The sergeant guided him around the vehicle yard, openly sharing insights into U.S. repair approaches. "Here's the key. We engineer it all, so even a rural kid can handle fixes. Plenty of our troops had zero experience with engines before training, so we keep it straightforward. Wires and color codes, uniform fasteners, labels on everything. Our guides are penned for basic literacy levels. The goal is that breakdowns get resolved by anyone on the spot. No need for experts." The detained technician inspected a taken-apart Jeep motor. Each piece bore clear markings. The repair guide featured precise drawings and sequential directions suitable for novices and mechanics. "How many of these do you make?" The sergeant lifted his shoulders. "Beats me on the precise figures, but probably thousands weekly. They roll out of factories quicker than we can transport them. We've got Jeeps in such numbers that breakdowns often mean swapping for a fresh one right away, skipping the repair wait." Thousands weekly. That figure sounded unbelievable, but proof surrounded them. The yard held more machines than whole German units ever commanded, and this was merely one modest U.S. outfit at an advanced depot. The sergeant pressed on with the walkthrough. Dodge haulers that managed payloads needing dual German rigs to match. Half-tracks for troops built in volumes that turned similar German models into oddities. Armored haulers designed to shift tanks sans track damage. Truth is, we drew lessons from the prior conflict. We construct with shared elements across the board. A screw from a Jeep works on a truck or half-track. Applies to wiring, fluid lines, you name it. Streamlined supply chains. Rather than stocking 1,000 unique items, we stock a few hundred and churn out millions. This insight eluded full adoption in German industry. Shared parts went beyond assembly speed. They forged a supply web where components swapped freely across uses. Any tech could tend any ride, and the setup sustained itself seamlessly. The path from North Africa to U.S. detention sites extended the lessons. At each halt, captives encountered American output volumes, shattering their prior assumptions. Norfolk, Virginia's harbor handled thousands of tons of goods each day through automated precision. Derricks shifted loads at paces that would have demanded workforces in Hamburg. Rail cars ferried prisoners countrywide in comfort cars luxurious by German measures. Vehicles dominated the landscape. Sedans packed factory lots. Lorry lines clogged roads in endless trains. War machines stacked in storage fields by the thousands, primed for frontline delivery. At Camp Hearn in Texas, trained techs offered their skills to the yard crew. U.S. base leaders embraced their talent since the conflict required all hands on deck. Over the following 2 years, German techs toiled beside U.S. troops, upholding the machines vital to base operations. American techs tackled upkeep with blunt efficiency. They weren't perfectionist designers, they were fixers bent on uptime. Brakes got patched fast using on-hand resources. Short on spares, they'd adapt. Irreparable ride, they'd strip it for usable bits and order a new one, arriving in days, not weeks. The POW techs studied U.S. methods intently. German training emphasized factory standard restores with dedicated gear and protocols. U.S. training stressed uptime via whatever worked. In calm times, German ways yielded superior outcomes. Amid war's disorder, American tactics shone far brighter. Camp Hearn's yard managed hundreds of machines per month. Jeeps rolled in for checkups, got tuned in hours instead of days, and hit the road again. The speed stemmed from spare plenty and part swappability. Needing a swap? The supply shed stocked it ready. Plenty of spares were on hand. If a piece of equipment was needed, the supply depot delivered it without delay. When a truck proved irreparable, a replacement arrived swiftly. A German technician struck up a friendship with a U.S. serviceman who had labored at Ford prior to the conflict. The American displayed deep insight into vehicle manufacturing. Prior to the war, I toiled on the production line at Willow Run. That's Ford's bomber facility just outside Detroit, the largest plant globally. We were assembling B-24 Liberators. Operations kicked off in 1942, and by the point I was conscripted last year, we were finishing 1 aircraft per hour. Every hour, a full 4-engine heavy bomber emerged from the assembly. The numbers were mind-boggling. 24 planes daily, more than 700 monthly. What enabled such output? The tenets of mass production. Henry Ford pioneered the method of dissecting intricate assembly into basic, replicable processes. Skilled artisans aren't essential if each employee handles a single straightforward job over and over. A farmhand, straight from the fields, could master fitting a specific bolt in a set spot after just 7 days of training. Multiply that by 1,000 laborers, and you achieve enormous yields. This marked the core contrast. German manufacturing depended on expert artisans crafting high-quality items in limited batches. U.S. manufacturing leaned on partially trained staff, producing serviceable goods in vast volumes. The American went on. Jeeps followed the same pattern. Willys Overland produced them. Ford did too. Each facility adhered to the same blueprints. Indeed, a Willys Jeep meshed seamlessly with a Ford Jeep. They're fully swappable. Thus, if a factory faced bombing or disruptions, the alternative continued churning them out. Upkeep stayed straightforward since technicians mastered a single model, not a multitude of versions. The German technician pondered the Wehrmacht's assortment of vehicles, scores of varied truck models from assorted makers, each demanding distinct components and servicing protocols. Schwimmwagons sourced from Volkswagen, staff cars from multiple suppliers, seized rides from throughout Europe, each needing specialized spares and expertise. German supply chains turned into a chaotic mess of mismatched setups. American supply chains flowed smoothly thanks to standardization. The true brilliance lay in engineering for ease of production right from the outset. Back in 1940, when specs for the Jeep were issued, firms had only 75 days to deliver a prototype. American Bantam managed it in 49 days. Willys and Ford then polished the blueprint for large-scale output. All aspects needed to be easy to build, easy to service, and easy to fix. The detained technicians had inspected sufficient Jeeps to grasp this reality. The design lacked finesse. German designers might have crafted something more refined, yet complexity hindered high-volume manufacturing, and volume was deciding the conflict. By mid-1944, inmates had caught whispers of Operation Overlord, the Allied assault on Normandy. Upon hearing of the operation's triumph, few were taken aback. The Allies possessed the industrial might to construct an armada that would have required years for Germany to match. Updates seeped into the compounds via U.S. papers and radio reports. They absorbed stories of the Normandy shores, where coalition troops stormed ashore with thousands of machines in the initial assault. Jeeps, haulers, armored vehicles, landing craft, all ferried over the English Channel in specialized invasion boats, themselves built by the thousands. The operation's magnitude was beyond grasp. 6,000 vessels, 11,000 planes, 150,000 troops in the opening push. In mere weeks, millions of Allied fighters would engage across Europe, backed by factories that generated gear quicker than the Wehrmacht could eliminate it. The German captives mulled over their wartime optimism for success. That optimism rested on beliefs in German tech dominance. Those beliefs fell short. Germany excelled in engineering across numerous fields. German tanks boasted thicker armor and superior firepower compared to most U.S. counterparts. German planes frequently featured advanced designs. German rifles ranked top tier. Yet, such advantages counted for little when America could manufacture 5 tanks for each German one, 10 trucks per German truck, 100 Jeeps per Kübelwagen. One afternoon in the motor pool, captives observed U.S. troops securing Jeeps to haulage rigs headed for the harbor. A junior enlisted man guided each up the ramps with effortless assurance. Dozens of machines packed away in under 60 minutes, all destined for Europe to offset casualties and equip fresh formations. One German technician grasped that this lone loading effort at a single Texas base equaled more vehicles than his whole unit had fielded in North Africa. Such spectacles unfolded daily at facilities and warehouses nationwide. The equation grew undeniable. Germany had geared its industry for all-out war. Gutting consumer output to SU support for military production was limited. Nevertheless, in 1943, German output of military vehicles across all categories fell short of 100,000 units. In contrast, the United States, while sustaining a robust civilian sector, manufactured more than 2 million such vehicles during the same period. This gap extended beyond mere numbers. It was also about quality. U.S. designs prioritized the demands of prolonged warfare, featuring straightforward upkeep, standardized components, user-friendly handling, and sturdy durability. German models, however, followed peacetime standards that faltered under the strains of extended battles. Come November 1944, word arrived at the camp about a German push through the Ardennes region, the event later dubbed the Battle of the Bulge, representing Hitler's final desperate bid on the Western Front. The assault depended crucially on seizing U.S. fuel depots, as Germany lacked the reserves to keep its armored units moving. Even more alarming came intelligence on Operation Grief, the commando raid led by Otto Skorzeny, who employed seized American gear. Disguised in captured jeeps, U.S. uniforms, and forged IDs, these German troops aimed to slip behind Allied positions, sow disorder, and seize key bridges. The fact that even Skorzeny, Hitler's go-to operative, famed for extracting Mussolini, had to rely on pilfered American rides due to shortages in their own fleet, spoke volumes about the Wehrmacht's dire supply woes. The mission collapsed. U.S. military police swiftly unmasked the intruders via pointed inquiries into American customs and protocols. The Ardennes campaign itself stalled, less from the intense U.S. countermeasures, though those were formidable, and more from the German troops exhausting their gasoline. Panzer units left their tanks behind as supply lorries never showed. Foot soldiers fell back on horse-pulled wagons since their mechanized support systems had crumbled. By January 1945, the German thrust was halted and pushed back. As spring 1945 unfolded, reports confirmed Germany's downfall. Soviet forces bore down on Berlin from the east, while U.S. and British troops forded the Rhine and plunged far into German territory from the west. Back at the camp's vehicle yard, the German technicians pressed on with their duties, servicing machines for the very forces that had conquered their nation. Their labor brought neither pride nor disgrace. The defeat stemmed not from any deficiency in bravery or expertise among the troops, but from pitting against foes whose industrial output they could never rival. One April day, a U.S. serviceman came by with tidings. Germany had capitulated. The European conflict was done. The mechanics acknowledged it with a nod. They'd anticipated as much for some time. "What about us now?" "You'll head back eventually," he replied. "Not right away, though. Plenty of paperwork and transport to sort out, but you'll get home." One technician pondered the words. Returning to a homeland reduced to debris by aerial assaults under the boot of invading forces, with urban centers leveled by the industrial prowess that birthed the Jeep he'd scrutinized years earlier. The American inquired, "You're sharp. Did you genuinely believe Germany stood a chance?" The technician weighed his response. "Pre-war, yes. We trusted our superior craftsmanship would trump your sheer volume. We'd encountered American goods beforehand, and plenty paled against ours. We figured your war gear would follow suit. But it didn't. No. Capturing that initial Jeep in '42 opened our eyes to a critical misjudgment. We'd mixed up civilian excellence with battlefield utility. Your Jeep didn't out-engineer our Kübelwagen purely on specs. It excelled in scalability and rough field adaptability. In all-out conflict, that made the difference." The American agreed. Yeah, we churn out solid stuff fast and in massive batches." "Precisely." They paused in quiet accord, two vehicle experts from rival camps, bonded by insight into the true drivers of victory. Repatriation kicked off in late 1945. German captives embarked on vessels bound for home. One technician reached Bremerhaven in January 1946, clearing Allied checkpoints before gaining freedom. The metropolis lay in devastation, wreckage sprawling endlessly. Yet, through the chaos, he spotted American trucks everywhere, jeeps ferrying officers along fractured roads, haulers distributing aid, depots where local Germans toiled beside Allied personnel. He made his way to one such depot, greeting the overseeing American captain. His English, honed over captivity, sufficed. "Sir, I'm a former Oberfeldwebel from the Africa Corps, just returned from Camp Hearn, Texas. I'm skilled in vehicle repair, including hands-on with U.S. models. Looking for civilian openings?" The captain scrutinized the documents. "It notes you served in our vehicle unit in Texas. True?" "Yes, sir. 2 full years." The captain jotted something down. "We're short on mechanics badly. Most locals..." The surviving mechanics from that era had either perished during the conflict or lingered in POW camps. You could commence work the next day. Wages came in the form of occupation currency, which could be swapped for basic provisions and daily essentials. In this way, the one-time Africa Corps technician secured a position with the military he'd battled, repairing the very same machines he'd once scrutinized as adversarial hardware. The Allies desperately required skilled hands for repairs. He desperately needed employment. The fighting had ended. Existence pressed on. In the ensuing months, he observed the initial stages of Germany's revival. U.S. assistance flooded in, allocated with the precision that had secured victory. Provisions, medical supplies, building resources, all transported via U.S. lorries under the direction of methodical American coordinators, tackling the nation's restoration step by step. He labored in the vehicle depot, instructing young locals on U.S. repair methods. A number of his trainees were ex-Wehrmacht troops much like him, individuals compelled to acquire non-military expertise in a country devoid of armed forces. He shared insights from his experiences, prioritizing straightforwardness instead of complexity, practicality over flawlessness, outcomes over abstract ideas. Such principles, drawn from U.S. machinery, extended to revitalizing German industry. By 1947, he'd advanced to overseeing the depot's local civilian workforce. The U.S. captain in charge of the site regarded him with esteem, appreciating his background and administrative abilities. One night, the captain asked him to join for a beverage in his quarters. "I've been pondering an idea. You've handled both German and U.S. vehicles in depth. If you were crafting a machine for post-war Germany, how would you envision it?" He pondered deeply. "I'd tailor the American method to suit European realities. Compact, more economical on fuel, yet upholding that core mindset. Interchangeable components, easy upkeep, focused on mass assembly rather than technical accolades. Our continent features tight lanes and scarce petrol, yet we demand the dependability inherent in U.S. conceptual frameworks." The captain agreed thoughtfully. "That's astute. Funds from the Marshall Plan will revive German industry, and local engineers are already examining American strategies. The path ahead lies in U.S.-inspired volume production, customized for regional needs." This foresight rang true. In the years afterward, West German industry embraced American output principles while upholding Teutonic standards of excellence. What emerged was an industrial resurgence that elevated Germany from rubble to economic dominance. Firms such as Volkswagen, builders of the wartime Kubelwagen, grew into worldwide auto leaders by merging precise German craftsmanship with U.S. volume fabrication. The iconic Volkswagen Beetle, one of the top-selling cars ever, captured this blend perfectly. It offered ease, dependability, scalability for large-scale output, and accessibility for everyday households. Ex-Wehrmacht repair experts who had toiled in U.S. detention facility garages came back home bearing expertise that proved essential. They grasped the value of uniform parts. They'd seen streamlined supply chains for spares. They'd noted how basic repair protocols boosted machine readiness. They'd recognized that planning for efficient production, not absolute perfection, facilitated high-volume output. These observations, accumulated over extended periods servicing U.S. gear, shaped German car development for generations. The auto firms rising from the devastation avoided reverting to old wartime models. Rather, they fused meticulous German detail with American operational speed. Into the early 1950s, this combined strategy yielded tangible gains. Volkswagen's output surged from mere thousands of units per year to hundreds of thousands. Mercedes-Benz integrated conveyor belt processes without compromising their renowned standards. BMW reorganized production to promote shared elements among various models. The post-war boom of the 1950s and 1960s drew heavily from these shifts. West Germany turned into a major exporter, marketing cars worldwide that balanced sturdiness with cost-effectiveness. The fusion of German and American methodologies birthed innovations impossible under either side's pre-war doctrines alone. U.S. Army chronicler Hugh M. Cole, who spoke with Wehrmacht commanders post-surrender, captured their views. Cole noted that German commanders revered the Jeep above all in the impressive U.S. arsenal, not the B-17 aircraft, nor the Sherman armor, nor the heavy guns, but the unassuming Jeep, as it symbolized the production ethos that truly clinched the victory. General George C. Marshall deemed the Jeep America's paramount innovation in contemporary combat. This assessment held no exaggeration. The Jeep encapsulated ideas that revolutionized not only wartime supply lines, but also international industry afterward. Uniformity, streamlining, emphasis on fabricability, and reliability prioritized over elaboration. By November. In 1943, the United States Army possessed sufficient information from seized Kübelwagen vehicles to issue Technical Manual TME 9.8.03, offering a thorough handbook on handling and servicing German machinery. Released on June 6, 1944, the day of the D-Day invasion, this document allowed U.S. troops arriving in France to make use of any Kübelwagens they took from the enemy. The Wehrmacht, despite seizing countless Jeeps, never issued a comparable guide for it. There was no necessity. The Jeep's straightforward design meant any technician could grasp it quickly. Such a disparity highlighted the core contrast in engineering approaches. The Kübelwagen demanded an in-depth manual adapted into English, so American repair crews could navigate its complex mechanisms. In contrast, the Jeep needed zero such instructions for German technicians to run and upkeep it successfully. These gatherings started during the 1960s. Ex-members of the Africa Corps, taken prisoner in Tunisia, came together to honor deceased companions. During a 1967 meeting, a spontaneous chat emerged about wartime transport. A retired technician shared his insights. The Kübelwagen excelled in engineering across various aspects: lighter weight, superior fuel economy, and ideal for arid environments thanks to its air-cooled power plant. Yet the Jeep proved superior for contemporary warfare, featuring four-wheel drive, easier servicing, interchangeable components, and above all, the ability to be manufactured in volumes Germany simply couldn't rival. An elderly commander from a scouting detachment agreed with a nod. "I recall seizing my initial Jeep back in '41, he said. "It seemed primitive next to our own machines. It took several months to appreciate that its basic nature embodied smart, streamlined performance." By 1943, every outfit coveted any pilfered Jeep since they performed more reliably in battle scenarios. Another old soldier chimed in, "My lowest point came when I grasped that the U.S. was churning out more Jeeps weekly than Germany built Kübelwagens yearly. That's the moment I saw our defeat wasn't due to any single clash, but basic arithmetic. They replenished their vehicles quicker than we could destroy them." This viewpoint solidified in those conversations. German troops held deep admiration for the Kübelwagen as a machine. Still, they acknowledged how the Jeep, and the industrial might it symbolized, proved pivotal. Not just its battlefield utility, which was strong, but what it exposed about the vast gap in production prowess between the opposing sides. The Wehrmacht's supply challenges were severe all through the conflict. Come 1943, roughly 80% of German divisions depended on horse-pulled wagons. The German forces launched into World War II with 514,000 horses, ultimately utilizing 2.5 million horses and mules overall, with about 1.1 million steeds active at peak moments. More than 2 million of these creatures perished in the fighting. Meanwhile, U.S. divisions were fully mechanized, depending on trucks rather than animals for supply lines. This yielded tactical edges that Wehrmacht leaders coveted. American convoys could cover hundreds of kilometers daily, whereas German ones, constrained by equine pace, managed around 30 kilometers per day under optimal circumstances. When Wehrmacht leaders analyzed their losses, they repeatedly emphasized resource imbalances over errors in tactics or grand strategy. German fighters displayed prowess and bravery, their commanders executed sound battlefield choices. But German factories failed to generate sufficient gear to support prolonged fights against foes, boasting massive material dominance. The Jeep emerged as the emblem of this imbalance, as every German who came across one instantly recognized its implications. A machine so plentiful that Americans viewed it as expendable, so dependable that upkeep was a breeze, so uncomplicated that any trooper could drive and fix it, and so capable that German squads favored captured Jeeps over their standard issues whenever they could. By 1976, the U.S. Army started phasing out the Jeep in favor of the HMM and WV. It had endured 35 years of duty, an impressive run for military hardware, with numerous examples continuing in reserve outfits and partner forces for years afterward. That year, Volkswagen marked the production of its 1 millionth Golf. Like the earlier Beetle, the Golf merged elements from both German and U.S. methodologies, meticulous craftsmanship allied with high-volume assembly. This blend fueled Germany's post-war revival. Into the 1980s, West Germany rose as a top global economic power. Its car makers shipped out millions of autos each year. German production became famed for excellence and durability, now bolstered by streamlined manufacturing techniques heavily inspired by American practices. The last Africa Corps assembly occurred in 1998. Under 24 attendees showed up, all in their 70s or 80s, enduring witnesses to a war concluded over half a century prior. A century before that gathering, the events had unfolded. At the get-together, a comment arose about a nearby museum that had obtained a refurbished Willys MB Jeep. The majority expressed interest in seeing it. These aged gentlemen, once youthful troops in Africa, clustered around the machine, scrutinizing it through the gaze of technicians and fighters who had grown to admire its qualities. One old soldier extended his hand to feel the bonnet, his gnarled digits following the well-known contours. I handled one back in '42. Drove it for 3 months until I was injured at El Alamein. Finest ride I ever commanded, superior to our own gear. Another gave an approving tilt of his head. I inspected a similar one in Tunisia right before our capitulation, astonished by the straightforward construction. It hit me then. Our vehicle concepts were misguided, overly intricate, too challenging to fabricate and repair. They churned out more than 600,000 units, a third chimed in. We managed 50,000 Kübelwagens. That disparity explained it all. A brief hush fell over them. The Jeep rested there as an exhibit, its battles concluded long ago. Yet to these survivors, it embodied far beyond a relic of the past. It stood for the industrial might that bested them, the practical ingenuity that delivered results, the plenty that eclipsed their shortages. We lacked machines like this, one remarked at last, not in such volumes, not with that dependability, not crafted under those principles. We aimed for flawlessness. They focused on output. This insight had dawned on Wehrmacht technicians as they pored over seized Jeeps amid North Africa's sands, Italy's peaks, and France's countrysides. Such realizations molded post-war Germany and impacted worldwide progress. The Jeep transcended mere transport. It served as a tutor. Wehrmacht repairmen, sobered by loss, emerged as eager learners. They delved into not only servicing U.S. gear, but the rationale behind its creation and the production mindset those choices reflected. The very strategy that clinched victory. That hard-won wisdom laid the groundwork for Germany's revival and later affluence. Loss instilled modesty. U.S. machinery imparted utilitarian design. Together, they forged a refreshed German outlook far more beneficial than wartime arrogance. The tale of Wehrmacht mechanics in the Jeep illustrates growth amid downfall. Arrogance had convinced them of German supremacy in engineering, that excellence would outmatch numbers, elegance would surpass plainness. Harsh truth showed differently. American rides didn't outshine German counterparts in raw specs, but they suited the demands of contemporary conflict. Easily mass-produced, serviced by basic trainees, assembled from standard swappable components, tough against harsh use. This practicality, amplified by U.S. output prowess, generated insurmountable logistical dominance no German expertise or valor could counter. The Wehrmacht boasted skilled troops, adept leaders, and advanced tools, but it missed the bedrock to endure all-out war versus foes, outpacing destruction with creation. The technicians servicing both sides' machines grasped this firsthand. They'd witnessed each system in action. They'd handled vehicles born of contrasting doctrines. They recognized the superior method in battle's grind. That awareness guided their efforts in restoring Germany. Instructing novices, they stressed brutally earned takeaways. Advising operations, they pushed uniformity and streamlining. Developing items, they valued ease of making and sturdiness. The specialists reviving German auto and industrial fields had dissected, taken U.S. hardware, toiled in detention site garages, and eyed American assembly techniques. They blended Teutonic accuracy with Yankee throughput savvy. That fusion yielded stunning triumphs. Come the 1970s, West Germany led in exporting fabricated products. Such fiscal wins confirmed the value of defeat's teachings. Germany shed the overconfidence fueling disaster, embracing a sounder path drawn from victors' practices. The Jeep contributed notably to that shift via hands-on encounters. Each Wehrmacht fixer tending a captured Jeep gleaned clues to American thinking. Each commander traveling in one noted its edges. Each fighter beholding Allied vehicle hordes saw through the spin. Such moments, echoed among countless German troops and captives, bred broad awareness that Germany's fall stemmed not chiefly from Millie. This realization, though fleeting yet substantive, profoundly influenced perspectives on rebuilding. German officials and technicians sought to incorporate U.S. techniques instead of reverting to outdated approaches that had already shown their flaws. They prioritized large-scale production over artisanal methods on a smaller scale. Their focus shifted to creating products that were easy to produce and dependable, rather than striving for flawlessness at the expense of feasibility. The Wehrmacht technicians, who initially came across Jeeps amid the arid expanses of North Africa, could scarcely foresee the enduring impact of that experience. At the time, their goal was simply to comprehend a foe's machine, evaluate its strengths, and decide if it might suit their troops. Through this process, they uncovered fundamental insights into production potential and design mindset that would define their careers and guide their country's post-war revival. The final survivors among those technicians are no longer with us. Their first-hand accounts have faded, yet the knowledge they gained persists in global methodologies. Any car engineered for straightforward assembly traces its roots to the ethos the Jeep represented. Every uniform component mirrors U.S. contributions to international norms. Every priority on durability resonates with experiences from repair depots where Wehrmacht personnel serviced seized American gear. Such is the Jeep's enduring heritage, an instructor of core ideas that revolutionized production. It demonstrated that preconceptions of excellence demand scrutiny, that practicality trumps elaborate ingenuity, that prioritizing production and upkeep proves more effective than chasing ideals. These teachings aided in elevating Germany from vanquished adversary to thriving partner. The technicians who confessed to lacking anything comparable to the Jeep evolved into visionaries of resurgence. Their modesty, forged in loss and refined through careful study, benefited their homeland more than the arrogance that had invited ruin. Come November 1942, as Wehrmacht technicians inspected a seized Jeep in the North African sands, they embarked on an enlightening path that would shape an entire era. Those who piloted captured Jeeps acknowledged they had encountered nothing like it before. That candid recognition signaled the dawn of insight that ultimately restored a country.